Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following everything happening with the latest gaming hardware, and we actually have a next gen console to watch this week. I'm Daemon Hatfield. I'm joined by Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked.
We came full circle, Daemon. We did it.
We have done it. And also from the only video game podcast, Sam Claiborn joins us this week.
Hey, it's good to be here. It's a new year and a new console watch.
Yeah, so the Switch 2 is finally out. It's real. Everything that had leaked, I think, turned out to be true pretty much. So there weren't too many surprises in Nintendo's presentation today, but good to know that it's real. It's really happening, coming this year. There is still a lot we don't know, though. So, after today's presentation, we know that there's going to be a Nintendo Direct in early April 2nd, and then there's going to be opportunities for people to get hands-on with it in certain cities around the world starting in April. Mm-hmm. But there's going to be a lot to look forward to, lots more information for Nintendo to share as the year continues, and we'll definitely be talking about this a lot on this very show over the next coming weeks and months. But Sam, first of all, give me your first impressions. Now that the Switch 2 is officially official, based on what we know, what do you think?
Yeah, so for me, the Nintendo consoles have always been a reason to play Nintendo games. Like, I care about the games. I care about the library of games. So it's really tough to see an announcement that focuses on, this looks a lot like the Switch. It has these new things. Like, I'm excited for how, this doesn't change the formula too much. But what I'm going to be excited for is seeing more of that Mario Kart, seeing what else is coming to it and stuff like that. So keeping that in mind, I think the playing it safe is so smart because they got a good thing going. And I think it's really fun to see Nintendo finally do a sequel like they do with their Super Mario Brothers games. They're just doing a sequel to the Switch. I like everything about the design look. I wish for more color schemes. We can get into that, but that's my initial impression. It's exactly what I want out of a Switch 2 in terms of what they showed. What I don't know is what the games look like, how powerful it is, all the things we're going to talk about. That might change my mind. But for right now, for what they showed, it's not like I have a bone to pick with what they showed.
Sure. The video did not directly address the possibility that the Joy-Con can be used as mice, although they seem to demonstrate that in the video. Someone clever on Twitter said it was a bold move for Nintendo to show the Joy-Cons literally drifting. Got a kick out of that. Ryan, what do you think about the Switch 2?
Well, it's because of all the leaks, there really, as you said, weren't any surprises. And this isn't new because the Switch isn't new and it's been so successful. And in a way, Nintendo's kind of a victim of its own success here, because if they'd strayed too far, they risk a Wii U kind of situation. They've definitely played it a bit safer. So yeah, there are a lot of unanswered questions that we're going to talk about. Ultimately, I just still, even as now, even with Nintendo, generational lines between consoles get grayer and thinner. They're basically, it's like they're aging, but I still get really excited about proper new console generations, and one way or the other, to whatever degree it ends up being, this is a proper new generation for Nintendo. And so, like, when I think about, like, Daemon, I've gone on and on about on this podcast, on this show for a long time about how I can't wait for the next mainline 3D Mario game. Yep. And like, when I think about, okay, this thing's going to be more powerful, to what degree we don't know, and it's rumored to be the big fall game, and Nintendo, or the 40th anniversary of the original Super Mario Brothers is this fall, so it's all coming together for that big new 3D mainline Mario game. But it looks like Mario Kart 9 is going to be the launch game, and we see 24 players in that. Is it going to be like an open world kind of Forza Horizonification of Mario Kart, which would be an interesting new place to take it? So, like, as Sam said, it is all about the games, but hardware wise, like, yeah, it's playing it safe, but I don't think anybody really expected anything else. And so, while it's not as sexy as maybe it could have been if they'd taken a few bolder swings, but it's still the first proper new Nintendo console in like 8 years now. So for that alone, I am still hyped.
Yeah. Let's cover what we do know. First of all, everything we can round up. We know that it's bigger. We don't know exactly how much bigger it is. Although there was that mock-up at CES that people were showing off.
Right.
We know what those dimensions were, but Nintendo itself has not confirmed exactly how much bigger it is. We know that it's mostly backwards compatible. One would assume maybe the sort of strange software like Nintendo Labo stuff or Ring Fit Adventure, maybe that stuff won't be compatible. It's got a second.
Well, and I'd throw out there that even the original Switch was not compatible with every version. Every game wasn't compatible with every version of the Switch, right? Because there was the Switch Lite, which you couldn't disconnect the Joy-Con from. So they have to be really careful when they look forward to this. So don't be too worried about the backwards compatible library, because I think you're about to say the games work in it. It's using the game slot from the previous system.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is crazy.
It's got a second USB-C port. It's got an extra button, which I think rumors had saying we're calling it a C button, but in the video, I don't think there's any indication of what they're calling it yet. We know
so there was a really compelling theory floated in the IGN Slack by Josh Dew from our social team, who suggested that what if it's a trackpad? Like for the mouse-like functionality when your Joy-Con are attached to it, because one of I forget which one he said, but one of the PC handhelds has that exact thing in that exact location, and it's about that size. So I thought that was a fairly compelling theory.
We know that the Joy-Con have been revamped. Now they pop off the sides. They no longer slide on and off. You use a trigger to just pop them off and on. We know that there's a new Mario Kart game, which is perhaps a little surprising, just because Mario Kart 8 is just so perfect. It's going to be maybe hard to improve on an already perfect game. We know,
but also a decade old.
Also
so
a decade old. That's true.
It's time.
We know that Switch 2 will be out this year. There will be a Nintendo Direct coming on April 2nd. And like I said at the top of the show, there's going to be events where you can get your hands on it starting in April in certain cities around the world. So what, Sam, for you, what would you say are the biggest questions that still remain about the Switch 2?
Sure. I mean, it's definitely, as I mentioned, what games are coming out. I'm very curious about its ability to play contemporary ported games. So is it in 4K? Can it play, all of these games I'm excited about coming out for the next couple of years? Switch was able to keep up for a little while, and then it was able to display other games okay. Like we kind of got later on Dooms and stuff like that. We're always like, whoa, that's coming to Switch. Like that was surprising. Those days have really fallen off now. So like how much can this hold on to the kind of current console generation games, or maybe even last generation, which is a lot less exciting. Very curious about that. And then, of course, I want to see what's under that Joy-Con controller side. Mm-hmm. Like, what is that side doing? They, of course, are showing it running around like a little mouse or like an actual drifting car. It's doing that, but you see both sides of the Joy-Con they show have that little, what looks like a little optical lump. And, whatever that is interesting. Now, remember, the Switch also, and speaking of being backwards compatible, this might not have this, was able to do things like have an infrared ray that it shot out because it could see your hand positions for like WarioWare and maybe one other game. Like barely ever used that. Like that might be gone now. This might be just a simple replacement for that. Like some kind of rudimentary camera where you can look at stuff, scan stuff or something like that. I have no idea, but really, really excited to see if you can use this as a mouse, because of course that opens up shooters, stuff like that. So that's what I'm excited about. What's inside and then what's on that side of each controller. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as video game or as console reveals go, I think this video does the job. I think maybe there might be some feeling it's a little bit lazy on Nintendo's part. It's just a 2-minute video with not even any VO in it.
And there's not even people at a party on top of a building. I mean, that's what I thought we'd get, right?
Exactly.
Nobody's having fun in this video.
no one's having fun.
They don't address
that new Donkey Kong.
They don't address the stick drift issue. However, they do show. They make a point of showing a close up of the stick rotating around. So I don't know. I took that to mean that for them saying, "Guys, we got it. We're using the Hall effect joysticks, so we shouldn't have drift issues this time around." Ryan, as the weeks and months roll on this year, what are the questions that you want to have answered about the Switch 2?
Well, there's sort of hardware stuff, software stuff, and bigger picture stuff. Like on the bigger picture, obviously, battery life, although I guess that's more hardware, but price, release date. And on the release date side, like it's got to be pretty soon. I know the rumors are heavily suggesting not before June, but June would still be pretty soon. But if it goes much further than that, like Nintendo's gonna Osborne the Switch One. Like starting now, I guarantee that Switch One sales are going down. Like the little arrow on the graph is plunging downward as word about Switch 2 gets around. So I just don't think they're gonna let this go for too long, especially if the general public is going to get to play it in April at these Switch experiences. I don't know if Daemon or Sam, if either one of you remember if Nintendo did something similar for the Switch 1 in late 2016, early 2017. Because
they definitely did for the Wii U. They did a large tour for the Wii U, and you know we all got to play it in public. Like that was a public event. I think they did one at Fort Mason in San Francisco.
How long before launch was that, if you recall?
I don't know. It could have been after launch. Now, in hindsight,
so,
like, this is pretty unusual to do kind of a tour. This is what's replacing E3 though, right? Like it used to be that press and everybody could play it, and then for a little while, public could play it like PAXs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you know, like there were that type of preview opportunities before, so they're just taking control of that. And by the way, Ryan, that's a really good point about the release date. Clue though is that these events are starting. What is April, right?
Yeah,
that's when they're starting.
And so the hardware's done, and whatever game or games, it's probably going to be more than just just Mario Kart.
I was going to point that out too.
Those games are going to be done or really, really darn close to it. So hopefully it is going to be June, and it would just seem weird if it lingered on that much longer. But I also wonder, is Nintendo going to raise the prices of their games? Sam, you mentioned 4K and upscaling. I want to know if, say, frame rate boost on Switch 1 games is going to be a thing that happens. Like, you know, smooth out Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, which I'm still playing through.
You're saying without like an update, right? Like, so it's like this
just
isn't like
native hardware
native
bump.
upscale.
Yeah, like are we gonna see that? The full extent of that potential mouse functionality. So can I play first person shooters like the rumored port of Halo the Master Chief Collection to the Switch 2? Man. Can I play that basically with a mouse, the Joy-Con mouse? Because that would be awesome. And real-time strategy games like Civ 7 is about to ship, and I'm sure 2K will probably bring it to the Switch 2. So that's definitely a question. And so it's just how much more powerful is it than the Switch 1? Like what ultimately is this thing going to be capable of? Because if it's PS4-ish, hopefully a little more,
PS4
but
Pro?
If it's PS4 kind of power, then that could, because every generation I feel like we get excited about, oh, there's going to be more third-party support this time. And I guess with Switch there has been, but in terms of those AAA games that are on the PlayStation and Xbox, they don't tend to find their way, and they haven't really found their way to the Switch. Like we got a Witcher 3 port to the Switch
years later,
much later, and it barely ran. But if Switch 2 is PS4 or higher in terms of horsepower, then it would probably open the door to a lot more third-party support, because it would allow publishers to come in and sell their PS4 and Xbox One games all over again on the Switch 2, which maybe for us enthusiasts isn't that appealing because we've already played them, but to Switch only players or more casual players that haven't played those games already, then that could open the door to a ton more software support for the Switch 2. So yeah, there's still plenty of unanswered questions for sure.
Can you imagine like how much easier it is to stuff a higher end system into basically a cell phone than it was 8 years ago, though? I mean, like the power differences could be extreme. It's just price limits that, right?
Exactly.
So it's like you gotta like think like everybody out there is saying like, well, this could have the core of this new cell phone like be so powerful. Like, no, it's not. They don't want to do that. They want to sell you a game for, and I think Ryan and I agree here, $400.
Yeah, I would bet, I would do my classic In-N-Out Burger lunch bet that it's not going to be a penny more than $400. There's just no way.
It might be an exact penny less.
Exactly, $399.99.
You would not expect it then to come in at 300? like the Switch?
Oh, no. Heavens no. No.
It's tough because of inflation and everything. I mean, I know they could have waited to get good supply chains going and like make that make sense. I just don't. I just, what an interesting play that would be. What I was saying is the opposite end, and that there could be a higher end, SKU that maybe looks different and has different pack-ins, like they did for Wii U. It would be essentially a bundle, but they still sold Wii U in 2 different variations, and they never did that with Switch. And I'd be interested to see if they got away with a higher end model, but you'd be getting more for your value. It wouldn't be the core system wouldn't cost more.
The Switch 1 OLED is still $350. So even if they cut the price of that to $3, we're still there's no chance that Switch 2 is less than $4. I don't think. And
just that's an interesting question too. So you were just saying Switch sales are about to go down. There are still Switch games that are announced. One of those is Metroid Prime 4. What happens to that game now? And also the Pokemon game was announced for Switch also. So yes, those seem to be cross-gen games. But does that also point to those being cross-gen games that, work well, first of all, Pokemon's already not working well on Switch, right? The last 2 Pokemon games have had performance issues. So they're going to put a Metroid Prime and a Pokemon presumably on Switch and on this new system. I also think that indicates that they're not going to want to run out the Switch for that much longer. So those are probably this year games. That means we're looking at, a Pokemon, a Metroid, a Mario, and a Mario Kart all in launch year. That is a video game system launch year. Well, that would be incredible.
And really, they have to come out swinging, Sam, because and they did with Switch 1 with Breath of the Wild as a day one launch game, and then Super Mario Odyssey as 6 months later as the big first holiday game. But they have to do that again. They have to swing that hard again, because before it was just, hey, we've got a new system that's way better than that Wii U thing we're all going to forget about.
It's not the Wii U is what mattered then.
But this time they have to convince people to upgrade. Here's, we talked about, it's a similar looking device that's somewhat more powerful. We don't know how much yet. But and like you said, there are going to be cross-gen games. So it's the Switch is I believe now the second best-selling console of all time. And that's you have to convince those Switch owners to upgrade. And you don't do that with cross-gen games. I get, okay, Metroid Prime 4 is going to be cross-gen, but Mario Kart 9 isn't. I mean, the next 3D Mario isn't. They need some huge Switch 2 only games to convince people to buy the new hardware.
Yeah, what you were describing, Ryan, is the exact problem that we saw with the current gen, PlayStation 5 and 4, right? Well, I can just play God of War Ragnarok and Horizon Forbidden West on my PS4 Pro, right?
Yep.
So it's looking like the Switch 2 is Nintendo's most iterative and least revolutionary console, right? They're first of all, with naming it Switch 2, they avoid the pitfall that they had with the Wii U, where a lot of people didn't understand it was a brand new console. They thought it was some kind of an accessory for the Wii U, right? PlayStation has had great success just using the next number for the next console, so it seems like they're being a little bit savvy with that. It's also it's the first time in their history where it's just the same console, a little bit bigger, a little bit more powerful, and the ergonomics of it have been reworked. It's not like going from the Super Nintendo to the Nintendo 64 to the GameCube to the Wii, right? Where everything is completely different.
No, it's more like the Nintendo to Super Nintendo generation, or the Game Boy to Game Boy Advance generation, or a little bit less like this, but like the 2DS to 3DS generation, right? The Nintendo DS to 3DS generations. Those are we're playing it safe because we found something that works. Now, one thing that really made people mad about the Nintendo to Super Nintendo generation that I know a lot of people won't remember, but it was very much in the news at the time, was that the Super Nintendo couldn't play Nintendo games.
Yep, parents are really mad.
And parents were so furious. And Nintendo's gone back and forth on that over the years. You remember the original DS could still play advanced games, but they at that time said, but we're going to keep the Game Boy Advance on the market. We're doing like a 3-pillar strategy with GameCube, DS, just in case the DS fails, and Game Boy. And so this has everything going for it in the fine we'll upgrade your system for Christmas this year for parents. Like all that stuff being in there is like answering these questions, but they don't have that question for like, well, why, just like what Ryan was saying, like, well, why do you need to upgrade? The 2 new games you want to play, Pokemon and Metroid, are already on your old system.
Well, and you touched on this, Sam, is how long does Nintendo keep the Switch 1 around in any form, whether it's OLED, base model, or Switch Lite? Because
interesting,
you've got to figure with, assuming Mario Kart 9 at launch and then the next mainline 3D Mario game, presumably for the 40th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers in the fall, are Switch 2 exclusives. You're not going to want to be actively marketing and selling the Switch 1, because you're going to end up with unhappy customers who buy the Switch 1 and go, why can't I play the new Mario Kart or the new,
it's a bad
the new Mario game? So
that's when it becomes confusing, right? When people are buying the old system to play the new games, like what a mess. Maybe they'll do what they did with the end of the Game Boy Advance generation and make Switch into a micro, and it'll be this little tiny pocket-sized Switch.
It's really too small for anyone to play comfortably.
The games are already that small.
It's true. Well, it's exciting. Switch 2 is finally official, have it revealed. It just means this show is going to have a lot of fun, interesting stuff to talk about over the next coming weeks and months. Last week we were talking about Switch 2 rumors. We ran a poll on IGN asking you, what rumored Switch 2 feature are you most excited for? And over half of you responded 4K upscaling. So I guess you'll be looking forward to hearing if Nintendo will comment on that in the future. But I thought was interesting, way at the bottom, the least exciting feature for you was the optical sensor on the Joy-Con, which would allow them to act as a mouse. That's like one of the most exciting things for me. Our viewers, only 5% were excited about that one.
They have to show it and show people what that's all about. Exactly. It's so hard to think about what an optical sensor is. And then also, a lot of people don't play. What's the desk solution? What do you do if you really want to play a game?
Just use it on my chest? Like how? Yeah, exactly.
Or is that side pad a touchpad, like Ryan was saying?
I may be reaching a little bit here. In fact, I am probably reaching a little. But in the 2-minute trailer, when it pans over to the television with Mario Kart on it, to me that, it's like a big flat screen TV. Mm-hmm. To me, that kind of implies that, yes, we're going to at least upscale to 4K. Because it's clearly like rendered to be a modern 4K television. You can't even buy a non-4K TV anymore. So I'm probably reading a little too far into that, but I don't know. I took away a little bit of an implication there.
And Sam, we're running a poll right now. It's asking about people, whether or not they plan to purchase day one. Is that right? Do you have the current results, how that's going?
Yeah. So let's check it out. So the latest results there, and we asked, are you planning on getting a Switch 2? And 48% of people even said yes on day one. Mm-hmm. Only 14% said, nope, I'm fine with the current setup. And then the second highest group said, 37% said, I'm waiting to find out more games, specs, etc. So that's 48% are basically half people are saying, I'm going to go ahead and get this.
Yeah.
No matter what happens at this point, but 40% are waiting to see what it looks like.
So viewers, make your voice heard. You can vote on this poll right now at IGN.com, and we'll share the final results next week. And that's going to do it for this very exciting edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Sam, thank you so much for joining us this week.
You're welcome.
Thank you to Ryan as well. Thank you to, everyone working. It was hard getting this episode off the ground today. Lots of gremlins in the system. So thank you to Jobert and Ryan and Amir and Dave and everyone working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. My name is Daemon. We'll be back next week with the latest Next Gen gaming hardware news. We will see you then.
And also, Daemon, don't forget, on Thursday the 23rd at 10 a.m. Pacific, join IGN and me live for the Xbox Developer Direct featuring Doom: The Dark Ages, a couple of other games, and a mystery game. And we, meaning Podcast Unlocked, will be live to analyze it, discuss it immediately following that. So join us for that one.
For sure. Thank you for
reminding
me, Ryan. This is Next Gen Console Watch. We'll see you next week.